Om Ajnanatinandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Ajanulambita Bhujo Kanakavadato Sankirtanai Kapitaro Kamalaya Taksho Vishwambaro Dvijabaro Yugodharma Palo Vande Jagat Priyakaro Karunavatar Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sarita Gaudadai Pushpavantu Chitra Samdota Vandeham Shri Ramakrishna Abhaya Charanasako Sukado Paramanando Sundaro Subhapriyo Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Rakanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Shobhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Shri Guru Vaishnava Guru Parampara Ki Jai Gaura Purnima Ki Jai Oh, Bhakti-vrinda ki jai. Oh, Premanande. Morning. So, we gathered this morning on the day of our celebration of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance, and we will discuss something about him and his contribution this morning, and later, after also the context of the discussion, we'll give Harinam initiation, and they'll be followed by Artik and Prashad. And then Abhishek, take a bath for the deities at 3:30. Follow along with that with Kirtan, and then at 4:30, we'll have a formal lecture as well, and another arti and the feast as we culminate our celebrations for this weekend. So nice to be with all of you, and it's notable that the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was heralded auspiciously by the holy names of Bhagwan. Most of you know the history, as it's recorded in a number of sacred texts. As I've said before, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in the mix of his associates. There were many educated people and writers, poets, musicians, and so forth. And so they, in no small measure, they put to verse and prose and music the accounts of his extraordinary life, activities, and in some instances also interwove with that the theology and philosophy that underlies his ecstasy and explains something about it, locates it, as I've said before, on the sacred, the map of the sacred text. These sacred texts are like a map for us, and we have a map and we have the guide. The Guru, both go together. And so the Goswamis, they were the founding acharyas of the Sampradaya, and they, as I say, often located the ecstasy and persona of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on the sacred map and identified it with the ecstasy of Radha in her love for Krishna, her extraordinary event then, appearing in a sense, Radha and Krishna combined, Krishna in the mood of Radha. And as we heard this morning in West Bengal, where the Ganges meets the ocean. So at the time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance, this was very near the end of the 15th century. This probably corresponds with the Renaissance in Europe, isn't it? So, well, the Renaissance was kind of a departure from faith. It was the beginning of unhinging philosophy from revelation. And many material achievements resulted from that. But meanwhile, in India, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was involved in a revival himself of faith. Faith is the way. It said that Nityananda Prabhu gave away the holy name for only the price of one's faith. Faith, Shraddha, is all that one needs in terms of eligibility to tread the path. That means to say that faith is required in anything that we do. In Gita, Krishna has explained that a person is his or her faith. What our convictions are, we act accordingly, and we may be identified by. So, fine. However, the point being here that with regard to other paths within the Hindu world, and certainly can be said about other spiritual paths as well, and other material paths, while you need some conviction in them, in their efficacy or their importance, as may be the case, and you also need some other talents or abilities. Or, for example, there are a number of qualifications for Ashtanga Yoga, a number of qualifications for entering the Gyan mark, the Karma mark. Faith is included. You can't get around that, but for Bhakti, Krishna Bhakti, the Krishna Bhakti of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Uttam Bhakti, as the Goswami described it and defined it. It's simply the price of faith. Nothing from this side has any power unto itself. Although we may qualify ourselves from this side, mentally, intellectually, physically. So, purchasing power for real estate in the land where there's no death. So we should understand as well that while faith is the animating principle in life, if you don't have faith, you can't go forward with whatever your endeavor may be, whatever the course may be. In this case, we're speaking about divine faith. So it's something coming from the other side, which Sridhar Maharaj beautifully and poetically, is characteristic of him, his poetic expressions of in English described the Parvyo Chapati Bhuti, how we're going to call this spiritual dimension, as planets of faith. We live in a world of doubt. As I say, no doubt about that. We have doubts, and that causes some hesitation. But we want to live in a land where there's no hesitation, where we can move freely, like you might as a child at home, with faith, your protectors, your maintainers, and so forth. And so you don't question what they ask you to do until you start to grow up and have doubts. So planets of faith, world of faith. If there's a world of doubt, as there no doubt is, then doubt is absence of faith. And so there must be a land of faith. So from that world, there's faith in the Gita. Krishna explains there's faith in the different modes of nature. There's Rajasic, Tamasic faith, Sattvic faith, Rajasic faith. And he doesn't say it there, but of course it's implied. But later in the Uddhava Gita, which is found within the Bhagavatam, which is the parallel really of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna spoke to Arjuna, the Kshatriya, in the Mahabharata, what's called the Bhagavad Gita, which makes the Mahabharata worth reading. Without you take the Bhagavad Gita out, then you remain in the material world. Maybe a better material life, but Gita seeks to take readers who, in Mahabharata, for the time the Gita is spoken, are on the edge of their seats, as it's now time for the battle. It's been building up and so forth. And while everyone is fully attentive, Krishna speaks about transcendental life. But later in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives a discourse, enlightens, we should say, Uddhava, Brahman Uddhava, his counselor in Dwarka, very dear to him, as of course is Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, but because he's speaking to a Brahmin rather than a Kshatriya, it comes out a little differently, but it's quite similar. So these two Gitas, songs, Uddhava Gita, the Bhagavad Gita, very similar. And so, for example, while in the Gita, Krishna speaks of different types of faith in response to Arjuna's question, in Bhagavatam, he goes on and he says that there is faith in 3 modes of nature, and then there's faith in me. Nirguna Shraddha, transcendental faith. So this is the kind of faith that that gives us eligibility to tread the path. And where does it come from? It comes from the planets of faith, the world of faith. It's descending. So it's a holy, our course, our path is a holy spiritual path, because that which it takes us as a means of conveyance, if you will, to the spiritual world must itself be spiritual. Well, we may spiritualize other instruments, ingredients, elements, aspects of our present situation. I'm searching for the word for it, but tools or something. We have physical, mental, and intellectual aspects of our material self, which, as we heard last night, are insufficient to themselves. They're part of the problem. They are a manifestation of our karma, and karma is the binding force. So it's difficult to rely upon them for our release, if you will. But they can be employed and should be, and rise, if you will, to the occasion to be utilized by faith. That is, as I say, coming from the other side. So this would gives us eligibility to tread the path. It's a simple thing in a sense, because there's nothing else that's required. But then in order to get that, we need sadhusanga. That's not going to come from mind. It's come from physical prowess or mental, intellectual ability, and so forth. We call this avaroha panta, descending method. And there's much wisdom to that, as I say. Let's just explain. For going to the spiritual realm, you need a spiritual vehicle. So that vehicle is the divine faith by which the sadhus are moving it is, as I say, faith, the animating principle in the world. And so they are, the sadhus, animated by that faith. Under the influence of the spiritual diving practices, means spiritual energy, Swarup Shakti, moving in the world, who Mahatma, great souls, and that then, in one sense, you want to say that the gradation or the ladder of progress in bhakti is, in one sense, a development of faith, deeper, deeper faith. And faith means experience. It's tangible. It clears doubts. It's different, I want to say, than belief. Belief, as I'm speaking about it, we refer to an intellectual affair. Faith is an affair of the heart, transcends the limited vehicle of intellect. And so the sadhu's heart is filled with faith and moving freely within the spiritual parameters, touches others in the world with faith. And that influence of bhakti is always in the world. We are all under the influence of karma, but by good fortune we can come in touch with the influence of bhakti. And when we come in touch with the influence of bhakti, uttam bhakti, then we will acquire some sympathy for bhakti, some tendency for bhakti, very subtly, unknowingly even. It's like you don't have to know that fire is hot to be burnt by touching it. So by touching bhakti, we will be affected, although we may not feel it immediately. But it's a powerful, powerful influence. It has the power to not only to arrest our karma and put it aside in terms of that which we're due to reap, having sown, but also that which we were already reaping. It can cure the common cold, which is thought once it starts with. You just have to wait it out. I just give it as an example. Point being that, ignorance is the source of our problem, manifests as karma, and eradicating the ignorance will end any further action that accrues in material reaction. What about the reactions you're already experiencing? Knowledge unto itself can't do anything about that. And this is the excellence of bhakti, that it has the power to even eradicate, deal with, diminish, and do away with altogether, ultimately, the manifest karma, prarabdha karma, special power of bhakti. So a very powerful influence. Therefore, a little context with that, if it's sadhu sangha, sarva-shastri, lavamatra sadhu sangha, sarva-siddhi, many statements like this. This is from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Krishna, so little association, sadhu sangha, sarva-shastri. All the shastras say that it's a moment's association with the sadhu that can change your life. So this is a fact for us, where and how and when that all began. It's hard to say. We could think about it in this life. So there may be also beginning another life, and that unknowing contact with bhakti has a result. It results in further contact with bhakti, wherein, in due course, one with some knowledge of what bhakti entails and involves, one participates in it. And from unknowingly being involved to knowingly, partial knowing of what's about being involved and participating, to what we call shraddha. It's like if you take a seed and you put it in the ground And you come out every day, nothing's happening. But something is happening underneath the ground. The seed is germinating, roots are coming out. This is like the unknown and partially known aspects of the progress of in terms of participation in bhakti. And then one day it's popped above the ground. It's visible, it's prominent, makes a statement. So the Shraddha is like this stage. Obviously, it has a prior stage, as I'm speaking about, that involves sadhu sangha, knowingly or unknowingly. Once we have enough of that it turns into Shraddha, then we go from Shraddha to knowingly and consciously seeking and taking advantage of sadhu sangha, that our faith may, where it comes from, that would cause it also to flourish now, if we do it knowing. So if unknowing, and this is one of the points of the verse I cited, this is a little association with sadhus who have a great effect. We shouldn't think, okay, I got a little of that, I'm pretty good. The implication is what to speak then, if you knowingly and you take advantage of that and get love association. So it's meant to inspire us in that way. And so this is what gives us eligibility. We like to think of love as requiring free will. I suppose it does, but Krishna has exercised his free will through the agency of the sadhus, even when we haven't. And we've become marked persons, so to speak. Now, then we have to respond to that freely. According to how we respond to that willfully, we determine to a large extent the rate of our progress. So grace is there and effort, both, these two things. We'll call our progress. So, that said, as I began, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in the world, and his appearance was heralded by the sacred logos, by the divine name, by the arrangement of nature as it's described. This, of course, chanting of the name is the principal method to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's madness, the main practice on the path. Faith in what? Faith in really in the efficacy of Krishna Nam and bhakti, and within that kirtan, and we go on from there, the Kali Yuga and the time for being such that chanting is most efficacious. But again, with his appearance, and prior to appearance came the name. The story is, as described by a number of the biographers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, writers, and his community, that and just at the end of the 15th century, maybe 1486, after being in the womb of Sachi for 13 months, it was a little bit of a problem. You had a long, what is it called, gestation period? 18 days. Yeah, so it was a concern at that time as well. And the husband, or excuse me, the father of Sachi was, Nilambar Chakravarti was an astrologer, and so he did the astrological chart with regard to the time of conception, which is also mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita, the time of the date of the conception. And then he predicted, oh, he will appear on this day, which is going to be another couple months. And it would appear that he was waiting for all the stars to line up, so to speak, to appear at a most auspicious time, the time that we're celebrating. Of course, it's not accurate, but it's hard to get accurate because it happened
in India at a certain time, probably 2 in the morning here or something. Actual day. But at any rate, something about that should be said. We celebrate the days and we honor the tithis. Tithi means the exact time. It's an astrological calculation and so forth. But in one sense, these celebrations are meant to be points of emphasis in the course of our practice, so that we pay attention more, and if we kind of learn the lesson and are attentive, we think it should be like this every day. Once we did a festival, I'm saying in Los Angeles, and there was no occasion per se. Prabhupada was there, and it was in the park. It was chanting all day, and Prabhupada went and witnessed, participated to some extent. And then on the way back, one of my godbrothers said to me, "Prabhupada, this festival was wonderful." And Prabhupada looked at him and said, "Every day is Krishna service." So that's the idea. Every day should be a festival. But at any rate, the auspicious time was ascertained, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared at that time. And at that time, the evening of his appearance, at the time of the rising of the full moon, the moon was fully eclipsed. Now, the eclipse of the moon is, in the Hindu tradition, is thought to be inauspicious. The personified shadow of the earth. Rahu is a malefic planet in the astrological calculations. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Malefic influences may be good from a spiritual point of view, and depends where he is in the chart, I suppose, and whatnot. But at any rate, he was covering the moon, and the way the poetry about this is very beautiful, and this is and just an example of how the sages in our tradition would personify the world and bring the world poetically to life, and make everything a sacral universe, everything sacredness pervaded, and the whole world. You were talking about looking at the stars, and I was kind of commenting on that last night, to see it from a spiritual perspective, and by connecting it with its source and so forth. So the planet, if you will, the personified shadow of the earth, Rahu, thought that, who does this moon think he is, brightly shining, fully lighting the night, when in fact he has marks on him. He's not like fully pure. There's spots on the moon. So if there's spots on a white sheet, you kind of notice the spots. So, of course, it depends who you are. But the malefic planet was actually, you notice the spots. But his thinking was, as the poetry goes, that therefore, in light of the fact that the spotless moon of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is appearing, I should cover that moon, the ordinary moon. So that's the eclipse. So the ordinary moon is covered, and the moon, the spot, as he sometimes poetically referred to, described, the spotless moon, which gives soothing light. Also, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu can be seen as the moon in many of the epithets which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu include in it. Moon Gaura Chandra, for example, golden moon, and so on. The moon has a reflective light. We talked about it a little bit this morning of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the sun and Nityananda Prabhu as the moon, rising together in Krishnadasa's most poetic verse, probably in the whole book of Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is his namaskar, special namaskar verse where he identifies the deities of this book, Gaura and Nityananda. So they said they appear together like the sun and the moon. He's trying to give some idea of how extraordinary the appearance is. If the sun and the moon rose at the same time, fully, it would be certainly something to write about. And in that analogy, well, we look at Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the sun, and Nityananda Prabhu as the reflective light of the sun, which is the light of the moon. And reflective because he is like only he fully absorbed in service to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and his light is then the light of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is reflected in him and shared with us. But we can also look at Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the moon of reflective light, in that he is Bhagwan, God, but he is what? In the mood of bhakta, the devotee. We'll talk about this tonight. It's very interesting, important subject. But the devotee is the reflected light. The light of the sun of God is reflected in the devotee in a soothing way. The moon's rays and the full moon you can take in. You can look at the moon. It's hard to stop looking at the full moon. It's hard to look directly at the sun at noon. It's too powerful. So the importance of the devotee, the importance of the guru, which Patrita Marsh gave a nice example, that you have the lotus and it's seated on the water and taking in the sun. They can take the sun because it's seated on the water. Without the water, it would wither. So without the guru, in the context of the association of sadhus, guru, and so forth, then we can get association with Bhagavan, understand, come close. It's a very important point. We're going to look at tonight, I hope, but in the context of the discussion, but the importance of the devotee, sadhu, in Gaudiya Vaishnavism exceeds the importance of Bhagwan, of God. It's very peculiar. And we talked a little bit about, I think yesterday, was that love of God is difficult to dismiss. God we may dismiss. We see the example in the sadhu. It's hard to dismiss that. So at any rate, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Bhagwan, but appearing as a bhakta. And so he has the spotless moon. And Rahu thought, I've got a good excuse now. I've got a theistic excuse for battling with the moon and blocking his light out and so forth. Meanwhile, the people, the residents of Navadvip, thinking it's an inauspicious moment, they were all taking to an auspicious activity to counteract the inauspiciousness of the eclipse by bathing in the Ganges and chanting the names of God, Hari, Krishna, Ram, so forth. So as I say, the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was preceded by and heralded by the chanting of the names which he himself, of course, would be the greatest advocate of. And also, he advocated it in a particular way. He virtually distributed a dharma of the chanting of the name, whole philosophy and theology underlying the chanting, and explicitly what to chant, a particular, which names also this came from him, from his mouth, and so forth. So, but at any rate, prior to his appearance, or at the time of his appearance, the area of Nadia was all involved in chanting the divine logos and implications. The name and in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was one. The Bible says sequence of names, not different. And, that who describes, while at the same time there is a difference. Rupa Goswami is Namastakam, his 8 Astakam verses glorifying the holy name, has said that the name is non-different. Abhinatvam namanamino. Abhinatvam. It's non-different named from the name. The name is not different from the name. The person who's named. The name and named are one and the same. No difference. But leave it to us. There's a difference. There's no difference, but there's a difference. And the difference is it's the same person, but he, in the form of his name, is in a more magnanimous and generous disposition. So while we may offend the named Krishna, the name may still come to us. And there are nice examples, of course, in Chaitanya Charitamrita of such persons offending the person of Bhagavan, and still the name is coming and delivering them. So, special dispensation, the name. The time in which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in India was a time of considerable opposition to the what do they call it? Brahmins, Shankar, Smarta, and Brahman monistic perspective on divinity. Shankar was a powerful acharya. He advocated a monistic notion of transcendence that was world-denying. Jagan Mitya, Brahma Satya, Jagan Mitya was his sloka, his theme song. The world is false, Brahman is real. And in that school, you have your religious, your mystics, and then you have the religious representation of that. So the Brahmins presiding over religious rites and so forth. And it was thought that in order to attain the mukti that Shankar described, one had to take birth as a Brahmin first, and having taken birth as a Brahmin, one had to take sannyas in that life, and then one could attain mukti, which is, in a broad sense, you could have union with God. So this distanced the common people who weren't Brahmins, and certainly weren't sannyasis, from any possibility of like more immediate sense of connection with God, put considerable steps and intermediaries, so to speak, in between. And so there was a kind of a response to that, and it was led by a number of extraordinary people within different traditions in the Indian subcontinent. That, for example, at the same time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Guru Nanak, who started the Sikh tradition. If you read the Guru Granth, it's full of just his advocacy of chanting the names of Ram and Krishna. Satnam is one of their, like, Satnam, we say Haribol, Krishna says Satnam. So he was a big guy. Tukaram, there's Kabir, same time, more or less. And you can find his writing, advocacy of chanting the names of God. So this is something that's there in the sacred texts, certainly, without a doubt. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was engaged in chanting and dancing in Benares, where he, which was a center for monism. He was a sannyasi, and he was chanting and dancing in the streets. And the sannyasis there, who were monists, they were taking exception to this behavior. And because their understanding was that the duty and preoccupation of the renunciate would be to study the scriptures and not to be engaged in singing and dancing, which is emotional, worldly life. And so they were thinking it was out of character and doing something unbecoming for the order of sannyas. It was brought to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's attention and invited in their midst, and ultimately he came in their midst. And he said to them, when they asked about it, he said, well, actually, I have a guru, and my guru told me that I wasn't qualified to study the Vedanta. And he gave me a mantra and told me to chant it. And so I simply follow my guru. Is that in your book? Is that part of what you've been reading? Supposed to do that? And what he told me to chant is the name of Krishna. I think that's mentioned in the book too. I don't know Vedanta, but I think it's mentioned something about Kali Yuga, everywhere in the sacred text. I don't know how you could have missed that. I studied the Vedanta all day long. You seem to miss that. Anyway, I don't know. You know better than I do, but I followed my guru, and I think you're supposed to do that. And I've chanted, and this is the result that I have. And of course, they were embarrassed and humbled. And you could see that he was reaping a result that was far beyond what they even thought of attaining with their monistic perspective. It's said by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shrotam api Upanishadam dure harivatam. The sounds of the Upanishads, like Tattvamasi, Aham Brahmasmi, Neti, Neti, these are the sacred efforts. We're supposed to contemplate them. Aham Brahmasmi. Mananam, contemplate them, turn to meditation, reveal their significance. Well, Mahaprabhu said, Shrotam api Upanishadam dure harikatam. The sounds of the Upanishads, where they can take you, will lead you far, dure, from where you can arrive by harikata, by talking about the chanting his names and so forth. Kampashu, all these transformations of ecstasy. He mentions the Astasakti Vikara, eightfold involuntary transformations of ecstasy that Mahaprabhu was exhibiting in the highest stages. These will manifest in one or two, all at once. That's extraordinary. Different degrees. Inflamed stage, all of them at once, and so forth. So they, despite their objections, they were attracted, and of course he was able to shed light on the real meaning of the Vedanta course for Kali Yuga. It is mentioned in the Kali Santarana Upanishad. Brahma asks Narada, Narada asks Brahma, how will people be delivered in Kali Yuga? And Brahma replied, by these 16 names, 3 names but arranged in 16, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, that's 8. Hare Rama, Rama Rama. All the ill effects of Kali Yuga will be removed by the chanting of these 16 names. This is proclaimed throughout the Shastra, throughout the Veda. If you know it, you studied it comprehensively. Of course, it's said about the Goswamis, Nana Shastra Vicharana Sakama Samstata Pulukanam Tukaram Vande Rupa Sanatana. Their knowledge of the sacred texts would make the monists of Benares look like preschoolers. They were so comprehensive, and the study of it undertaken Lokanam Tukaram, For one reason, for the people of the world, hitakarana, out of compassion for the people of the world. They took the sacred texts and drew from them their essence in what we have in our tradition, we call the bhakti shastras. It's verily what Nard told Vyasa when Vyasa had written all the sacred texts and he was still feeling like something, I don't know, feeling complete. Nard said, we haven't really emphasized bhakti sufficiently. So, Srimad Bhagavatam is that book then that made it feel complete. And so, the Goswamis sufficiently emphasized bhakti, or showed the emphasis is there, if you know what you're looking for, if you look at it comprehensively. And within bhakti, the chanting of all the names is particularly relative for the times in which we live. Rupa Goswami, his Namastakam, referring back to that again, he said also that the sounds of the Upanishads, again, they are like precious gems, give off light. But if we understand them properly, and we follow the sounds, or the light, of the Upanishadic sounds, you'll see that they're all seeking to shed light on one sound, two syllables, Krishna, and its efficacy. Pujapachita Maharaj once described it. There's a place in the brain that if you touch it, the whole body will be paralyzed. Probably some other places too. And there it is. Something that's in Krishnanam, something like this. It's the essence of all the sacred texts. Bhagavan Chaitanya, this was his emphasis. So at that time, he was one amongst many who were advocating the name, and through the name having direct immediacy with in terms of experience Bhagavan without having to go through, become born as a Brahmin, then take sannyas, and so on and so forth. And that the immediacy in terms of experience of God through the name would be more full than monistic sensibilities. At least this we find in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teaching, which in some respects differentiates his advocacy of Nam, his Nam Dharma, from others in the time who were advocating the efficacy of chanting the name, because they had a nirguna, saguna conception of the name. They thought the name was a powerful manifestation of divinity in the sattva guna, and if you took advantage of it, you could enter into monistic ultimate reality. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said his name is nirguna. Nirguna means without qualities, but it means without any material qualities. It must mean that, because while Bhagavan is described as nirguna, the scriptures are full of descriptions of his transcendental qualities, especially the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam is focused on the emotional life of the Absolute. And that emotional life cannot be the same as an emotional life arising from the influence of material nature. We're doing that this evening. So, when he's described as nirguna, therefore it's understood in a secondary way to means without any material, or without, that he has no material qualities, not that he has no spiritual qualities. So, therefore, nama shreshtam api sachaputram, oh, he offered obeisances to his guru, who was given, he said, me the name and the highest conception of the name, which was given by the son of Sachi. He carried what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave to the world. His appearance was heralded by the chanting of the names unknowingly, even of their significance, to counteract the evil influence of the. We're not chanting for that of the solar eclipse, lunar eclipse. Nonetheless, his appearance was heralded by the chanting, and then he came to set us straight on what is the implications of the chanting, what is the philosophy, theology that underlies the chanting. And as I said, he also personally told us what to chant. There's a couple of references to this worth mentioning. Chaitanya Bhagavat, where this is the narrative of Chaitanya Leela, and that intertwined with his teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that Krishnadas Kaviraj, the author of Chaitanya Charitamrita, defers to repeatedly in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Much regard for Vrindavan Das and his contribution, which was the book that all devotees were relishing with regard to the Leelas of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And at a certain point, Krishnadas in Vrindavan was asked to write something more, having had something about the later pastimes, primarily Madhya Leela of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which shows the way. That wasn't developed in the same detail in Chaitanya Bhagavat. But the way of the teaching began, and Navadvipan it was there, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told his disciples to chant this Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. He called it the Mahamantra. We call it the Mahamantra because he called it the Mahamantra. We wonder where that comes from. It comes directly from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He told Tapa Mishra, I told the story a little bit about how he was in Benares and chanting and dancing and Mayavadis there. Exception to it, and he converted them all. Ultimately. Well, it was at Tapa Mishra's, Chandrasekhar's house. He was staying in Tapa Mishra. He was taking his meals at Tapa Mishra's house. These were the two devotees, living in Bengal, living in Benares. Tapa Mishra, by his own arrangement, he didn't know why. He sent me to Benares, but later it became clear he needed a place to stay when he went there, and he wanted to stay with devotees. So Tapa Mishra was a Brahmin, and he was wondering how to attain the goal of life. And he was studying the scriptures, and there were just so many different statements. So it was like a jungle of sounds, to use Sridhar Maharaj's phraseology, and sort it all out. Scriptures really require someone to explain them. It's super essential. What is said? What is the truth? What are the white lies of the scripture? Just like mother might say, "Here, take this medicine." Oh, medicine's so interesting. So okay, close your eyes, and I'll give you a ladu, sweet. And then he closes his eyes, and he puts the medicine in there. So scripture has lies like that. So we've reasoned, others have as well, that sometimes probably invoked strategies to tell partial truths, to keep the train rolling, as he used to say, and couldn't tell everything to everybody all at once, be more than they could digest. If I tell too much at once, maybe more than you can digest, and then you cannot continue. So it's the art of preaching. Everybody has that experience. You go out to buy something in the shop and you're wearing your neck bead, and somebody says, "Hey, those are cool. What are those?" And you go, "Hey, where do I start? What are those?" The Tulsi beads. They're very beautiful. We worship forever. Probably not where you start. I got them. My guru. That's sacred. Say something. It's not the whole thing. It's part, and make it easy for them and for yourself too. So it is with trying to explain this to everybody. It requires some thinking and what you'll say and what you'll not say, and so forth. So there's a statement where Prabhupada says, "Yes, you must have fallen from the spiritual world. It couldn't be Krishna's fault. It must be your fault." Another place where it says, "No one falls from there." So people are confused about that. And obviously they're contradictory. One of the statements that he made, you don't fall from there, is supported by the scripture and lineage, and all lineages of Vedanta. And where he says he did fall, and that's not supported. So we think, oh, he must have some reason for saying that to individuals at certain times and so forth. So kind of a strategy, if you will, kind of a preaching strategy. Some persons take exception to this idea of preaching strategy, but there's preaching strategies in the scripture themselves. The whole Karma Kanda section is a preaching strategy. The scriptures are about taking us to Bhagwan. But there are sections of the scripture that talk about how to get material gain and so on and so forth. And in a sense, they're trying to help us to develop faith in the scriptures themselves so that we look more deeply within them. So if you look and say, it says, do this sacrifice on this day at this time, face in this direction, and you get a good son. So you do it, you get a good son. You develop faith in the scriptures. Scriptures aren't about getting a good son. That's not right. So there are people who then give their whole section of karma mimamsa. This is what the Vedas are all about, all these types of things about material gain and so forth. And the Upanishads, just some small sections that are over there. A big section, which says, Triguni Vishayaveda, and this Triguni Bhavajana. You're running into such a stony over Chima. Because mostly the Vedas are all about material life. Triguni Vishayaveda. They're all about Vishaya, about enjoying material life. 3 parts out of 4, so to speak. About the modes of nature they're about. But that's not what they're really about. But they're about that for people who can't digest something more, bring them within the fold and tell them something, and then but they may, without good guidance, of course, they take something and then they're in opposition to something that will be the progressive stage that they'll come to in due course, and that creates problems. So we need guidance to sort all this out. I don't know how we got there exactly, but
you're going to give guidance.
A little bit of an aside, but can't tell everything at once. The Tapa Mishra. So he was studying the Vedas, the scriptures, and he was kind of sort of like, this says over here this seems to say the opposite over here. So he prayed, went to bed at night, and prayed that he could understand the goal of life and how to attain it, which was supposed to draw from the sacred text. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in the dream to him and told him, chant the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. And the next day, he met Chaitanya. So this is an instance in which Mahaprabhu specifically told to chant this mantra, and he called the Maha Mantra, these 16, like the Upanishad said, and so forth. There are a number of instances like this, as I say in Chaitanya Bhagavat, where the Maha Mantra is identified as such, comes from the mouth of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he specifically told his disciples to chant it. So this is why we follow. And he said, of course, that by chanting this mantra, then the sprout, the love of God will come. There's talk today in the Gaudiya community about the necessity of adding things to your practice besides chanting. You've got to get into Raganuga Bhakti, they say, for example. You've got to get into it, because if you don't, everything will be lost. Raganuga Bhakti is not motivated by fear or some problem. It's motivated by a taste, something positive for Krishna. We are practitioners of Rag Bhakti. This is our goal. Vrindavan is the Rag Marg. But, and Smaranam meditation is central to the practice of Rag Bhakti. But while only Shraddha is necessary for traversing the path of Bhakti, something further is required for meditating. You can't meditate very well without a clean heart. Chanting is meant to clean the heart. As the heart becomes cleansed, and becomes more qualified for internal life and culture, meditative life. So in the powerful statement of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who sat and chanted it was a billion names, took him 9 years, I think it was. Got to do the math. Long time, 9 years. I think it was in solitary bhajan. He got up and he said, Kirtana Prabhave Smarana Swabhava, among other things. The Vaishnav K, this is his poem. Vaishnav K, who are you? What kind of Vaishnav are you? He said, you sit as if you're Haridas Thakur chanting, but your mind will just go in different directions. You pretense that you're doing smarnam, this is a high thing. He said, Kirtana Prabhava Smarana. By doing kirtan of the name, then meditation will come about naturally. There's a place for meditation, following the associates of Krishna Lila and so on and so forth, and all that's involved in Bhagavad Bhakti. But his idea was the eligibility to meaningfully participate in smarnam would arise out of the chanting. It's good for people to know the theory. It's important and we emphasize it. But not in the way it said, oh, you better get going with your Lila Smarnam, or you're going to miss out. All you're doing is chanting. It's more to it than that. There is more in one sense, but the chanting will qualify you for the more, and the more will come as a result of the chanting. What do you think will be the result if you just chant Hare Krishna? That you won't get love of God? And what kind of chanting Hare Krishna? The chanting of Hare Krishna that comes from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Nama Shreshtam api Sachiputram. And I got the best, the Nam Shreshtam, highest. Shreshtam means like highest conception of the name. Paratanam. It has the ability to awaken or to cause manifestation within us of the kind of love of God that will overwhelm Bhagavan in Braj. So the name is, we should not be confused by this kind of misunderstanding. Oh, you better pray up and do something else. It's just chanting. Once I was sitting with Lord Puri Goswami Maharaj, and I was bringing up this kind of point, chuckled. He said, Baba, and he was over 100 at the time, years old. He said, Baba, he said, if you cannot chant, what did he say? Shuddhanam, the pure name, then there's no question of bhava. So it was a very simple statement, it was very profound. So if one is focused on chanting the pure name, then one's doing the right thing. And naturally, further eligibility to implement as part of one's practice aspects of Raga Bhakti will manifest in due course. And this is the emphasis of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And it's certainly confirmed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. So we are going to give an initiation of this chanting of the Maha Mantra. I want to say a few words about it, its importance, and so forth, and some history where it's coming from. What is the time now? 11:41. Mahaprabhu, when he told his students to chant the Maha Mantra, he said, you should chant according to your prescribed number of rounds. He's referring to japa here. This is a kind of smarnam, by the way. Nam smarnam, Jiva Goswami taught. From nam smarnam will come rupa smarnam, guna smarnam, lila smarnam. Because what? The rupa, form, the guna, the qualities, the lila, the pastimes of Krishna, they must be in Krishnanam if Krishnanam is not different from Krishna. The idea is to mine everything that's present in the name how you do that, but by attentive chanting. And one of the aspects of attentive chanting then is to have a fixed number of rounds. This is kind of a vow that it's the mood behind the first aspect, sharanagati, surrender. Like make a commitment, accepting what's favorable, rejecting what's unfavorable. So regardless of what's going on, then you make a commitment, prescribe a number of rounds, and you follow that. And Prabhupada writes in his Nectar of Devotion that with regard to Goswami's description of the limbs of bhakti, there's one limb I think one should not over-endeavor, should not undertake things that are beyond one's capacity. So it depends on one's capacity. His capacity, but he applies it there. With this he applies it there in relation to chanting. To give an example, so one should chant prescribed rounds, and one should make a commitment that one can follow. Otherwise, it's unproductive. So there's some dynamism that he himself decided that all the students should chant 16 rounds. First he told them to chant 64. And they said, we can't follow that. Well, then 32. 60. But he settled for that. And then he tried to keep it there. But the principle, and this is something that's adjustable in the time and circumstance. So I have adjusted in this way. It's the vow, the commitment will come from you. And then agree or disagree, and if we agree, then we expect to do that, and then as taste comes and commitment comes and so forth, increase. So I will ask each of you to tell me how many times I'm repeated in the chant. I will give you the fruits and the other aspects of the initiation that we follow here. You know, I think, I'm sure if you run up into my room, next to the sink with the teapot tray there, I think there's a stamp there. The stamp is our form of the tapa. So the ingredients here, elements of the initiation include pundra, tapa, yagya, nam, and mantra. You got them all. One try. Pundra means the tilak. Urdhva pundra means the Vaishnava tilak. It goes straight up and down, not like this shy by tilak. And this is, of course, the place in a sacred place, like the Vrindavan and Dwarka, and the devotees mark their heads with the ground. And then the footprint of Krishna. So, Pundra, then who's in the phone? Tapa. Tapa means, tapa is the sound, the two syllables that Brahma heard at the dawn of creation. It means sacrifice, it means knowledge. It means knowledge comes from sacrifice. It means, like I often say, go within or go without. That's where the real knowledge is found. Tapa. It means also like heat. Tapa. Light. Knowledge is compared to light and so forth. But with regard to sacrifice, ultimately bhakti itself is the ultimate sacrifice for the love that's born in the womb of sacrifice. So, in some traditions, as you may know, like other Vaishnava Sampradayas, the Sri Sampradaya, like Ramanuja, the tapa is the time of initiation. They brand the disciples' body with like the symbols of Vishnu, chakra, conch, and so forth. So their bodies, I've seen tattoos around the neck, names of Vishnu, and so forth. Forms of tapa. But the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's school is so much emphasis on positive and the easy practice for chanting, the tapa, in a broader sense, the austerity of Arsantavada is to observe the prophecy. To observe Janmashtami. To observe Gaura Purnima. Is it difficult? We turn it into a festival. So, you got a question? In a minute. Talking about explaining the procedures. So we're going to brand him first. You know what branding means? You take something iron and you have like a design on it, like Krishna, and then you take the iron and you put it in the fire, it becomes really hot, and then you take it and you burn it, and then you burn it on your body. That's tapa. Can you stay for that part? But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he's very generous. Hallelujah. So in his sampradaya, we write the name of Krishna with this tilak. Stay for that one. So Kundra, Tapa, we do those two things, and then Yoga. Well, you're entering in now the Yoga. And the mantra is, in this case, the non-mantra, Maha mantra. Later date, if you're more qualified, I'll give you also the Diksha mantra, which is in the dative case. Maha mantra. Oh, that was not even there. It was in the little square one.
It's dative case.
Dative case means like to Govinda, to Gopinath, to Krishna, giving himself. So I give myself to Krishna, Krishnaya, Govindaya. It's in the dative case. But the Maha mantra, it is in the vocative case. So it's like an exclamation. Hari Krishna. So Nam mantra is different in this way. And because of its difference, one of the aspects of it, chanting can be done anywhere, anytime, any place. Dative mantras for Krishna Nam, for example, in dative case, the time, number of times to be chanted, prescribed, direction, phase, whatnot. They're used in the deity worship. The Krishna Nam can be done even when you're sleeping. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was a little concerned because this Krishna Nam was vibrating on his tongue and couldn't stop it. And then when he went to bathe, typically when you go to bathe and you're in a dirty condition, it's not the time to do meditation. His tongue would not stop chanting. So I must be making offense. The Gopal Guru, one of his associates, no, don't think like that. The names of the Mahaprabhu would take what he would inspire his students, and then the teaching would come back, even to the elements. So even in sleeping, dreaming, you can see in the shadow. So part of that non-mantra. So we want to Kundra, Tapa, Yoga, mantra, and Nam. So I'll give you a name also. You have the family name, Das, and then your surname, and then first name. So now, typically the tilak is applied in 12 places. You know that thing. You're mystic. And there's also mantra for putting them on. If it, yeah. So that's the Kundra. There's others. LCD. Again, these are protected by way of when you wear them, people ask, what are those? Remember, you know, so, this you know, used to be that. You can, middle finger and thumb. Starting the last of this one is rounds we change. Start. Okay, so start with the big B here. Krishna, 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 Krishna. Start chanting on these beats. Okay, so right here. And then score for Das. Govinda's was prominent name for Krishna. Even Buddha was called Govinda, I think. And the Gaura means Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's Krishna, great Govinda. For Das. Okay, your dad's going to get an issue now. Okay. Harmony is played. This is good. Audarya. That means the springtime. You know, it's Krishna says, identify himself with the month, with the season of spring. And beautiful name of Krishna. Also, there's a name of Krishna in which Radha and Krishna are both present. Nam means also Lakshmi, Radha means Lakshmi. And his husband of Lakshmi, Radha and Krishna's name. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Radha and Krishna. Madhavadas Jai.
Jai.
We ask all the devotees, all the Vaishnavas, especially devotees, to bless them, pray for a few seconds here, and then we progress nicely. गुरुदेव की जय
जय
राव जी गोपाल की जय
जय
नित्यानंद की जय
जय
राधा माधव की जय
जय
गोविंद की
जय
गौर प्रेमानंदे पंचकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृष्णदेव पतितानां पावनेभ्यो गौर प्रेमानंदे जय. Okay, so now it's time for our Jai. Varnavandri Jai.